Welcome to the USA Hockey Next Gen podcast, where the future of the game takes center ice. Join us as we spotlight rising stars, innovative programs, and the voices shaping tomorrow's hockey community. From first strides to big dreams, this is where the next generation begins.
Welcome back, everybody, to the USA Hockey Next Generation podcast. I am your co-host, Lyndsey Fry, here with my lovely counterpart, Drew Shore. How you doing, Drew?
I'm doing great. I'm a little bit under the weather today. Both my daughters are sick, and I think I've been staying up way too late watching all these overtimes in the NHL playoffs. But I have missed you, and we're here, and I'm excited for this episode today.
Well, I think it's par for the course with little kids because I was down late last week and definitely not fun. It is going around like crazy. So everybody stay healthy out there. Take your vitamin C, whatever you got to do. Because a lot of places have tryouts coming up here soon, Drew. I don't know how it is in Colorado, but we got to have kids healthy out there, ready to go.
Yeah, they start tryouts here a lot earlier. I mean, when we used to do tryouts, it was right before the season started. Now it seems like all these teams want to get a jump on their players and lock them in earlier before the summer starts, but we do not need to go down that rabbit hole from me today because we have an amazing guest that I'm looking forward to talking to.
Yeah, Kevin Delaney. This is going to be a good one. I definitely am interested in this. I shared this in our conversation with Kevin, but I have a friend, played at UVM, hockey player her whole life. Her daughter is hard of hearing, and that is what Kevin does. He is the USA Hockey Deaf and Hard of Hearing hockey representative. He's the president of the American Hearing Impaired Hockey Association, and they do some incredible work that impacts kids and individuals all over the country. There's a deaf and hard of hearing national team that competes internationally on the men's side, on the women's side, continuing to develop, and it's just amazing that Kevin has been part of the group that has been pushing this forward from the time he was a kid all the way to now. And I just am really, really excited to share this conversation with everybody, Drew.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's bring him on and get this rolling.
All right. Well, here he is, the man himself, Kevin Delaney. Kevin, thank you so much for jumping on the show today.
Yeah, Lyndsey and Drew, thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yes, thank you. Have you guys been on the ice yet today?
No, I have not.
No.
It's still bright and early here in Arizona where I'm at. So I'm just trying to get the joints a little lubricated right now. That's my goal.
Well, very good.
Well, let's get started. I think, you know, we've talked about a lot of different disciplines of hockey on this podcast, but one that we've yet to cover is deaf and hard of hearing hockey. So let's just start right off the bat with the basics. For people that don't know, what exactly is that as a classification besides the obvious? What different levels of hearing disability do you have to be able to participate? Are there any differences in the rules? Things like that. Just let's lay the land for the people that are listening to this pod today.
All right, great. So deaf and hard of hearing hockey, there's no special rules. They play regular hockey. The coaches of the team that the deaf or hard of hearing player is on, let the refs know, let the other team know that there's a deaf player, and just to, when the whistle's blown, put their hands up. As far as hearing loss levels, okay, so I have been wearing a hearing aid since the third grade. I was born with inner ear nerve damage, and you would not know that. Most people, when they talk to me and spend a lot of time with me, they don't know that that I'm hard of hearing. And then there are players that have more of a loss, and then we have players that are profoundly deaf, and some players now are born deaf and they get cochlear implants, and that enables them to hear. In order to play in the Deaf Olympics, when they're older, for the deaf national team in deaf sports, you do have to have a 55% loss in your good hear. So obviously, I didn't qualify to play in international play over the years. But to participate in AHIHA, the American Hearing Impaired Hockey Association, that's our hockey school we have in Chicago in June. There's no limit, or guideline. As long as you have a hearing impairment, you're welcome to play.
Kevin, Lyndsey and I talk a lot about providing accessibility to people and how to grow this game. But can you talk a little bit about how this goes beyond just equipment and how we can include language, respect, and understanding?
Yeah, great question. So, there are a lot of players out there that are deaf or hard of hearing that are really, really good players. And accessibility, things like interpreters are important for teams to have. Visual systems around a rink, like the flashing lights, and then coaching, having coaches that are more communicative with the deaf player and making sure the deaf player understands. So, for example, Chuck Gridley is in charge of the coaching modules for the coaching education program. We're working with he and Zach Nowak, and putting that into the module and how to communicate better to a deaf and hard of hearing player. But the having an interpreter on the bench is for a player that's deaf and needs an interpreter is very, very important as far as accessibility.
Kevin, I want to ask you a little bit about your playing career and just kind of how you got to where you are now, really being a leader in this space. Had you played hockey your entire childhood? What's your background as a player in the game?
I started my life on the fourth line. I'm still living on the fourth line.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Everybody's got a role.
No, I played growing up. I played at Canterbury School, prep school. I played at Lake Forest College, and played in a lot of U.S. men's league here in Chicago afterwards, and got into coaching. One of my mentors is from the hockey school. Wally Cormilo was a power skating guy, and I coached youth hockey, and I did camps over the last 25 years on my own. It's kind of morphed into my job now, I guess what it is. But it's just I love the game. I try to promote it as much as possible. And I'm around a lot of good hockey players. And so I learn how the game's changed and try to incorporate that to what I teach. So
awesome. And I had a follow-up to that. So you grew up playing your whole life. Do you interact now with young athletes who maybe didn't grow up playing, or even adults who, hard of hearing, have different impairments, that maybe had, certain struggles that hockey was able to help them with? Did they help find their community with the deaf and hard of hearing hockey community?
Yeah, one thing about our school is we're still, this is like the third year we've had 20 new families of a deaf and hard of hearing kid, and they're excited about attending for their player to be around other kids like them. The Hoffman family do a type 1 diabetes camp in Florida in the summer too, and it's the same thing. But players are around other players like themselves, and so they learn how to how they manage the disease and play hockey, diabetes. And then, same thing with a deaf and hard of hearing player coming to our camp and being around other families that are playing with hearing players and the hearing organization, and finding out, what they need to do to get support from the organization, for get an interpreter or better communication from the coaches. So it's really exciting. And then for the adult player, the adult player are fun to coach because they want to get, it's like golf, they want to get good at it and they want to keep doing it. But they're not, hockey, they're not spending as much time at a rink than they are on a golf course, but it's, short time on the ice, about an hour, they get a good workout in. So it's like going to the gym, and, there's a lot of aspects of the game that you have to learn, skating, handling the puck and skating at the same time, so it's, it's a lot of fun teaching the new students as well.
Kevin, you've coached hockey for a long time. I'm wondering some of the lessons that you've learned now from starting to working with some of these hard of hearing athletes, and really how that shaped your overall coaching philosophy and leadership approach going forward.
Definitely, over the years, you like when kids come up to me and they say, "Oh, you coached me when I was younger." I'm like, "Oh, was I nice to you?" And they like, you matured your coaching style, and you learn nowadays, like, when we were coaching, when we grew up coaching, that the coach was more of a dictator and you had to follow what the coach said. Nowadays every player is different, and this is even in pro hockey. I mean, every player is different. Every player needs to be coached differently, and you have to understand how to motivate that player. And especially with a deaf and hard of hearing player, you have to make sure that they understand what you're trying to communicate and that they are understanding what you're doing. So you talk slower to them, you face them so they can read your lips, right? You draw on the board, make sure they understand it. And then, just check in with them and make sure if they have any questions. But I mean, that's with all players too. It's just communicating better and making sure that they understand and that they have fun with it. I guess that's the biggest thing is you want them to have fun. You want them to keep coming back.
So, Kevin, let's talk a little bit about, I know you mentioned it previously, but let's talk a little bit more about just the history of the American Hearing Impaired Hockey Association, AHIHA. What's the mission? Why'd you guys start it? And what impact does it have, not only locally, but nationally?
So it was started back in 1973 by a Chicago businessman, Irv Tannenbeck, that owned Leon's Sausages, and his good friend Stan Mikita, former Blackhawk and Hockey Hall of Famer. Does everyone know who Stan is? Because no one knows who he is anymore. But I'm sure you guys know who he is.
I'm old enough to know.
Okay. Lyndsey, you know who he is?
I'm going to get called out right now. I'm going to go educate myself, though.
That's okay. Hey, Lisa. So
listen, I didn't even know that college hockey was a thing until I was like 13. We lived in a bubble in my childhood here in Arizona.
You want to talk about it? Oh, that's on the next podcast. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Lyndsey's therapy session.
Yeah, we don't have time for that one today, Kevin.
That's going to be way too long.
Next week, to be continued. All right, so Stan, Irv had a deaf kid, Lex. Lex is on our board. Lex grew up playing. He was a Bantam. And that time, hearing aids. So I have a hearing aid. It just goes around my my ear right now. Hearing aids back then, they had it was a big battery pack and microphone here, and then they had plugs going in to his ears, and he was a goalie, right? So he got discriminated against a lot in the sport, made fun of. So Irv said, well, if this has happened to my kid, I'm sure it's happening to other kids. So he called Stan up and he said, what are you doing this summer? He goes, I'm playing golf. He goes, no, you're not. We're starting a hockey school. So, and with the help of Gene Ubriaco, who's part of the Chicago Wolves, that's the AHL team. That's the Carolina Hurricanes farm team. And Gene is the oldest Blackhawk alumni living right now. So, but anyway, they started a school. 18 kids came from all over. And it was 1973. They had it at Randhurst Mall. I found out about it. I came in 1984. I've been coming ever since. I was a player and, coach, and now I run it. And what the impact that it has for deaf and hard of hearing players is that it gives everyone a chance to be around players like themselves. I went and I was like, well, what the hell? These kids have it worse than I do. I used to get detentions if I wasn't wearing my hearing aid. I hated being different. We moved around a lot. We'll put this into the next podcast with finding out about Lyndsey. No, but being different in school, with a hearing impairment or any other disability, it sucks. But to come to the school and be around other players like yourself, at the same, impairment, and I wouldn't say impairment, but disability, and then play. So, and then to have everyone come from all over. We have kids from California. We have kids from South Carolina, a lot of Boston kids. I mean, there's Canadian kids coming too, because Canada doesn't do anything like this for their deaf and hard of hearing players. So, they come down to us. We have a family, an American family that lives in Denmark. They come over. The parents are from Minnesota. They come to the school. And the fact, Irv was a pioneer in getting USA Hockey to recognize, deaf hockey and, disabled sports. And at the same time, around sled hockey, it probably started at the same time. But, Irv did a lot for making deaf hockey part of USA Hockey. And then in 1991, I think it was, is when the first Deaf Olympics were. So, we've been competing internationally against other countries, since 91. So, and the kids that come to our school as, mites or beginners, they have something to aim for, is to play in that, the national team when they're older. And we do have a handful of players that have been with us that long, and they're now leaders on our national team. So it gives them something to shoot for, and something to play for as they move through our school.
Kevin, I want to transition a little bit. It sounds like that's an amazing hockey school that's helped a ton of these young athletes, but I want to talk about your role with USA Hockey. So you're currently serving as the deaf and hard of hearing hockey representative for USA Hockey. What does that role entail, and what are you doing to replicate more experience like that Stan Mikita Hockey School for kids all over the United States?
So my role is I represent, the disabled hockey section. I sit on board. Maureen Thompson does a great job of, leading us. And like Minnesota has a deaf and program through the Wild, and a lot of their coaches have, been on coaching USA Hockey coaching calls, disabled for how to coach deaf players. A lot of our players that attend the school help out. Coaches that live in Minnesota help out there. Like, for example, we have I mentioned a large population in Boston. We'll have a family skating event for current families, and also new members or people that are deaf and hard hearing in the community to come check out what AHIHA is all about and kind of promote the school and get, people that may have never heard about it. So, that's basically what it is. And a lot of it's word of mouth is how they find out about the hockey school. And, my role within USA Hockey, David Zimmerman, he is the Northern Plains representative. So I'm responsible for, who's the registered players are in the Central District, and then he's responsible in his region. So just helping the registrar understand what players are deaf and hard of hearing within USA Hockey. So, that's basically what I do in a nutshell. But our ad in USA Hockey magazine for the hockey school, it's been a wonderful way to advertise and get the word out about the school.
That's awesome. Kevin, one of my favorite things about this podcast is it always gives me an opportunity to look inward, and hopefully everybody that's listening that's involved either as a coach or an administrator, a hockey parent, it gives you an opportunity to sort of reflect on how you're currently doing things and how you could do them better to be more inclusive, which I think is what we all want in our game. And something that, is just occurring to me, like, I think exactly what you said, there are people that they're not comfortable outwardly showing if they have a hearing impairment, or maybe they don't choose to wear their hearing aids around the rink because they don't want to be othered, things like that. Do you think there's value or, other things that hockey programs could be doing to help sort of not necessarily like out these athletes, but just identify who has challenges that we maybe just don't know about so that we can better support them? I'm thinking like even putting in our registration for my girls program, like an option where if parents are comfortable sharing, hey, we want to be supportive of all of your daughters. If they have a hearing impairment, like, please let us know. Like, what can we do for people that are not necessarily right in the deaf and hard of hearing space, but may have deaf and hard of hearing players that we don't even know about? What can we do to be better?
Including them is important. Inclusion is, you're on the team, you're part of the environment, but giving them a sense of belonging is also important, that they're being understood and they're fully connecting without having to work for it is a big part of it. And then having interpreters available for players that need an interpreter, visual communication, and again having the coach take the time to make sure the player understands it. A lot of players, in my experience, a lot of parents don't want their kids to be different, right? So, I coach a lot of kids that are ADHD. They're on a special program at school, learning program at school, and the parents don't want to share that information with the coaches. So, and sometimes that's harder for us. It's not necessarily like deaf and hard of hearing parents are that way, but it is important. I coached a kid for a year during COVID, and he'd come into the rink dressed and had a helmet on. And when I was coaching him, he always give me some strange look. And then, a year later, he cuts the helmet's off and he's got a cochlear implant. And I said, "So you're deaf?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, it'd be nice to know. I run a deaf hockey school." "Oh, I didn't know that." It's just little things like that. But it's making the players, and this is in any of the disciplines in USA Hockey, it's making them feel like they belong. And there are parents, there are kids that are hearing, and they may have deaf parents, and the parents need to have that same sense of inclusion and belonging that the player has, so they can understand what the player is learning.
Kevin, these spaces are so essential for these athletes, confidence levels, identity. But I wonder, I'm sure you have a lot of them, but is there a story that stands out to you of true transformation through one of these deaf hockey programs?
About a player was like shy and not comfortable with being who they were, and then really using it to go somewhere. Yeah, we have a kid that has been coming to the school for a long time, shy kid. He's in college now. He came to the school as a 6-year-old, very quiet, played in Atlanta and played AA hockey in Atlanta, played club hockey, and now he's one of our leaders on the team. But he was a shy kid. He felt uncomfortable being different. He didn't speak up that much, but hockey, gave him confidence outside the rink to get his college degree, to play, to continue to play at the college level. And I guess that's one of the big things of the school is, in life, you have this impairment, but it shouldn't stop you from living your life. And I guess that's the biggest message, that in all the disciplines in USA Hockey, the message is like, okay, you can't do it the way other people can, but that shouldn't stop you from competing with them and playing the same sport. So
it's a great story. They're all good stories. We love it. And I think it's a story that we've heard in so many different areas, right? Like whether it's a girl getting to play girls hockey for the first time, or, you know, I even think about on like the women's side, which is more my world, but Kalia Johnson, one of the reasons she wanted to go play at BC was because Blake Bolden played there and she had never played with another Black player before and things like that. So these are all, I think, just the theme that USA Hockey continues to try to push at all levels is how do we make it inclusive? How do we help people feel like they're at home when they're in the rink? And I think at the end of the day, like, yes, we're developing hockey players, but we're developing people too. And I love that that individual is now giving back and helping the next generation. So this is I'm going to ask a pretty broad question here. Take it whichever direction you want, but whether it be your role in, you know, AHIHA, whether it's your role in USA Hockey, I had no idea the length of history going all the way back to the 70s of, you know, the organizations that are pushing to help support deaf and hard of hearing players. So you look at, you know, 50 years of history. Now we're 2026. What's your vision for the future of deaf and hard of hearing hockey, and how do you hope to influence that future?
Well, I mean, definitely something we want to get the women's team competing nationally, in international, the national team competing internationally. I mean that's the next big thing, and the other one is to keep it going. Like I'm just giving back to how Stan and Irv gave to me and all my teammates, and just creating a great environment for these players that they want to come back and help run the school. And I think that was what Stan and Irv and Gene, they wanted. And Jeff Sauer is a big part of it as well, from who's involved with sled hockey, who's at University of Wisconsin. But the whole idea was to have the players run the hockey school. And that's what we want to keep doing. So yeah, myself and a lot of my teammates are coaching or board members. We're giving back, and that's what Stan and Irv wanted. That's what we want to continue to keep happening. But we definitely want the women to compete internationally. I mean, it's important, and we have good players, and they deserve to have the same experience that the men's team is having.
Kevin, it sounds like Lyndsey's got some work to do. She's in charge of all these. She's got to get the women playing internationally. Let's go.
Well, yeah, we got to get girls council, and the disabled section. Pull them together in June. Do a
traveling road show to other countries.
That would be great. Kevin, I have a question for you. A lot of our audience is younger players and their families. What would your advice be for deaf and hard of hearing youth who are playing in mainstream hockey? Like, what would your advice be to them on how to make that transition a little more engaging and help them through that?
Keep playing, keep showing up to the rink, make sure that the player that's deaf and hard of hearing lets the coaches know, and the parents have the parents talk to the coach, and here's the best way to communicate to them. And I mean, just keep it so the player can learn just the way the other players are learning. And it may take a minute or two to make sure the player understands the drill, and has to be a little bit more attentive when they're on a shift and when a line change is. But it's just patience and understanding and how to coach the player.
All right, Kevin, we have a couple rapid fire questions. You've answered, I think, throughout the podcast, the first three. So I'm gonna start with the second to last one. The biggest change in, from the time you were a kid to now, what's the biggest change you've seen in deaf hockey over the years?
I mean, it's definitely, the players are getting better, and that's with hockey in general. I mean, there's more information, there's more accessibility to hockey. The deaf and hard of hearing player is more mainstream. There are more kids playing that are deaf and hard of hearing. Their cochlear implants are a big part of it too. Kids that are born deaf are getting cochlear implants so they can hear, and so But yeah, I would just say the population, the women, again, women's, we have our own women's team. So when I started, we had one female player. She was our goalie, but now we have our own team. But that's also with USA Hockey. So regular hockey has grown. So deaf and hard of hearing hockey has grown with it. But I definitely the inclusion and belonging of all disabled sports and hockey has been greatly increased over the since I started doing AHIHA. It's great. It's great to see, and it's a big family environment at the hockey school, and it's more than the hockey. It's about the family.
I love that. And Kevin, who's a deaf athlete or even leader who continues to inspire you today?
I would say Jeff Mansfield he was one of our players in the last Deaf Olympics in 2019. He was our goalie, gold medal goalie. He played at Princeton. He's from Boston. He's an architect. He was president of the United States Deaf Sports Federation. We have players that are mainstream in the business world that are profoundly deaf. Justin Simmons and Sean Levine both went to the schools growing up at the hockey school. Sean's from Chicago. They both live in Boston, but they're coaching hearing kids. They're coaching their kids. They are, deaf hockey players that are coaching hearing players. So, that's great to see too. But guys like that, Jeff Mansfield, they're inspiring to me because they're mainstreamed in the world of hearing. They have jobs. They're involved in promoting deaf sports, and they're involved in promoting hockey. So it's fun to watch.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, so appreciate your time, and like I said, I love these podcasts. I love these conversations because it just gives you a totally different perspective. You learn a lot, and I certainly have. One of my best friends I grew up playing with, I've known her for 20 plus years. Her daughter's 3, and it was really hard for them. They had a lot of complications. She was born with a hearing disability, wears, the big pink hearing aids, and just even this alone, it makes me feel so much more equipped to be able to, I think, implement more things into our program, our coaching practices, our coach development, everything, so that by the time that girl is ready to play, if that's what she chooses to do, we are going to be ready to give her the best inclusive environment that we possibly can. So I so appreciate your time. I so appreciate you sharing your experience. And I hope everybody listening to this, regardless if they're a player, coach, parent, admin, doesn't matter. I think all of us can continue to get better and just keep driving that accessibility forward. So thank you for your time.
No problem. Send that girl up to Chicago. We'll take care of her. Yeah. I just want to thank Stan and her for starting it. I wouldn't be where I am today and in hockey if it wasn't for AHIHA and the people involved. So I just want to give back. That's all.
Lyndsey, that was awesome. And it's so cool to hear him talk about how he really started building this initiative almost when he was a kid, and he's still doing it today.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the coolest things about hockey. Like, there's a reason you see so many kids, and it doesn't matter if they are, part of any discipline in the game, they tend to come back because of the impact that it had, how it made them feel. It becomes a family. And I think for him to be carrying on the work of individuals who impacted him when he was a young kid, I can only speak for, my world. I hope that one day I have somebody that went through my program that wants to take it over and take it into the next generation. And that's exactly what Kevin's doing. So very, very cool to see all of the work that he's done and the impact that he continues to have.
And I think I'm really excited to watch you take over this new initiative and basically guarantee that the women's side of this is going to be competing internationally immediately.
I mean, as long as USA Hockey pays the bill for me to travel all over the other countries, I'll do a European tour. I'll go get out there, pound some pavement, recruit, eat some food, all the good things. So we'll make sure that is locked in, recorded, and we'll hold somebody to that. But yeah, let's do it. Let's get more women playing. And I think again, it just goes back to we've hit the 100,000 mark for girls and women, which is amazing. And now continuing to help develop that with the other disciplines is going to be huge. We're seeing it with sled. They had their first world championship recently on the women's side, and hopefully we get there with the Deaf Olympics.
I'll be your agent on that negotiation with Ted, and I'll even give you a discounted agency fee going forward.
There you go. I'll need it. That's going to be a hard one to push through, but we'll get there.
No, I just want to thank Kevin for joining the show. He's so busy with his role at USA Hockey and the camps he's running, and it's been really cool just to see the impact he's had on so many both boys and girls who are going through this and playing throughout the entire country.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. And I would just encourage everybody that's listening, go inward. Think about what you learned from this, what you can do to help make sure that whether you have a hard of hearing player or not in your organization or in your hockey circles, make it an inclusive place, because certainly if you do, they'll feel like they're at home, and that's exactly what we want in this sport. But Kevin, thank you so much again for the time. Drew, I hope you feel better, man. Go rest up, get some liquids, whatever it takes. And, they do have recordings for some of these games if you're, too old to stay up late and watch.
I can't do that. I did it last night with the Vegas game. I woke right up this morning and checked my phone, wanted to see the score, but for some reason I have a problem doing that. But no, it's a great time of the year across the board for hockey. So thanks everyone for taking the time to listen, and we look forward to being with you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the USA Hockey Next Gen podcast. Be sure to subscribe, share, and follow us for more stories that inspire the future of the game. Until next time, keep skating forward and growing the game one stride at a time.